we've had Max on many times over his self-defense case, and there's been some developments recently in your press release regarding that, and I think we'll start with that, and then we have Jorge Mesa Tejada on at 9:15 to talk about education. I got to give you his phone number, unless you have it in front of you on the calendar, and then you can just give it to him.
I do have the calendar.
All right, see if it's in there. I think I dropped it in there. Oh, we have it. Okay, great. Anyway, let's talk about your case, because this is really, I don't know, this is important.
I went to the mailbox yesterday. The mailbox was stuffed, and there was finally a response from the Rockingham Superior Court, and the judge denied every single issue that I brought up asking for a new trial, except for one. Now, back at lorry materials, we just had a bill on lorry materials, SB 72, which I'll get to in a minute, but the police officers, if the police department has evidence of acts of dishonesty, theft, fraud, perjury, tampering with evidence, they have to turn that over to the county attorney's office so that the county attorney can submit that to the defense upon request. I requested lorry materials before my trial on those officers because I knew about incidents like the Bergeron beating beforehand. I knew about theft from the toy bank fund and gun range fund and padding overtime sheets and various instances where they'd light on the stand to get people put in jail who hadn't done anything wrong. They'd just spoken out against some officer or the police chief or the police department. And so I put in a request for lorry materials, and the county prosecutor, Patricia Conway, who's now county attorney, unfortunately, and she's been nabbed for firing Bouchard, who blew the whistle on the fact that she was using her position as assistant county attorney to bury lorry materials for her husband. So everything kind of comes back to the lorry materials issue. Dishonest acts by officers being covered up. And what the judge has said in his motion or his decision is essentially that he needs to see the police chief's report. He needs to see the official reports. He needs to see that information. But we know based on the news coverage of it, and we certainly know based on the video, that they lied about what happened. The entire police department knew about it. 2 of the officers were fired. One's being prosecuted right now. And the other officer is actually suing the town of Seabrook to get his job back. Or not to get his job back, I think just to get back pay. I don't think he even wants his job back. But now everyone in town wants him gone because once this case came out, once that video came out, and he had to be put on paid administrative leave, which is essentially a very long 6-month paid vacation. A lot of other instances where Officer Laurent, who's the cop who's looking up at the camera smiling, there are instances where he's kicked people in the groin and done other terrible things to people, and this is unfortunately turns out to have been a very long pattern of abuse by some of these officers.
Karma.
Comes back to get you.
Yes. When you're good to people, oftentimes it can rebound for the good for you. And when you're bad, it's lights out.
The downside is we just had a Republican, his work schedule changed, Republican from my district, Dennis Sweeney, who I thought was a very good Republican, but his work schedule changed and he was not able to make it up to the State House, so he did the honorable thing. He's resigning. Unfortunately, that means that we now have a special election, and once again, Mark Preston, the Seabrook officer who was a drunk driver for many years, finally got caught. He crashed into a parked Kia, hit it so hard that he rammed it into another parked vehicle and sent both drivers to the hospital with injuries. And then he threw his badge onto the passenger seat and walked away and stumbled back towards Seabrook. And he was the one who was on the news arguing with other police officers who were arresting him, saying, "You're going to ruin my career? What about the Brotherhood? If this were Seabrook, we'd take care of you guys."
If we were in Seabrook, we'd be taking care of you guys. Well, there's sort of the mask dropping from the face. He confirms what a lot of people oftentimes think, that the police will protect each other. It is a brotherhood, and they do a bad job. It's a bad job a lot of times, dealing with basically the riffraff and the worst of society. You can become a little jaded. I can understand. But, that doesn't mean that you get to do that. Those kinds of things where he could say, if this was in Seabrook, we would protect you. I mean, that's not what this is all about. Unfortunately, as we've been posting about, we see this more and more from public officials or our public servants who have turned around and said, no, we are going to be the public masters one way or another. And it just drives us.
Lord Byron Acton is famous for his quotes, and his most famous quote of all time is, "Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." When police officers have absolute power to file completely bogus criminal charges against you, write up the reports, handle the witnesses, handle the evidence, go to court, lie about what happened, and get away with it, and send people to prison, and they've done this in Seabrook a few times, just based on their own actions alone, they have absolute power. Now, you take an ordinary person, you or me, if we had absolute power to just take some pedestrian down and just stick them in prison, or take someone you just don't like and just put them in prison. You give someone absolute arbitrary power to make someone's life miserable. Just having the power to do that can corrupt someone. I think Thomas Jefferson was the one who said that once someone casts a longing eye on public office, it begins to work some blackness and corruption in your heart.
Well, there was another, and I was going to propose this as a WTF moment, but there is that the head of ICE, when testifying in front of a House, and I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize, but in dealing with one of the House committees on immigration, because that's what ICE happens to do, it came out that the agents out on the border and everywhere else, the active agents who deal with illegal aliens and immigration and all that other stuff, were being told, you will obey not the law, but Obama's directives. And think about that for a moment. We supposedly tout ourselves as being the rule of law. Similar with what you're talking about right now, Max, about the police. Well, if they're obeying their own code and not obeying the law, if ICE has been told, agents, you will obey Obama's directives, even if they run counter to the law at the risk of your job, what is going on with this country? I think this is one of the biggest transformations that Obama promised, that we're going to become under the thumb of the king instead of under the rule of law. We're seeing this on campus with this sexual assault type stuff, where the whole idea of due process under the law is being thrown out the window from the Federal Department of Education, Title 10 or Title 9, whichever one that is, of just making colleges the judge, jury, and executioner for what should be felony in the courts. So, this is just one more linchpin, Max, that you're bringing to us.
Now, there's another issue that I brought up, which was ineffective assistance of counsel. One of the things that my attorney did not do was demand a probable cause hearing. He waived it. Now, normally, if you waive your probable cause hearing, you're waiving it with the prosecutor in exchange for an agreement to get the police reports and photos and everything that they have in discovery. And it turns out it is catastrophic if you do not get access to that, and it certainly was catastrophic in my case. My attorney just, on his own, Adam Mackler, decided to just waive the probable cause hearing. Now, there's a bill that I testified on. No, I didn't testify. I sent the message in. They asked people to just send their testimony in writing, so I did. In front of the Judiciary Committee, it's SB 124, and it sounds like a great streamlining bill that cuts the process from 14 months down to 12 months and saves a little bit of time. But it saves a little bit of time by getting rid of the probable cause hearing. Now, in a self-defense case, you might need a probable cause hearing. 85% of the time they waive it. But the other 15% of the time, when the defense attorney does not waive the PC hearing, you need it. You need that information. You need to get witnesses on the stand. You need to lock them into their testimony. You need to get the transcript from that and introduce it at trial to show, look, this witness is changing their story. Here's why. Then they talked to their own attorney. They talked to other criminals in their little gang. They came up with their own little story. They changed their story because of this or that. You need to have that probable cause hearing. In a self-defense case, it's absolutely critical. And what they're talking about is leaving the decision up to the judge. So it's called Felonies First, SB 124. If it passes in its current form, the judge can just say, well, I don't think we need a PC hearing in this case. So the main intent is to start felony processes, since they're going to go to the Superior Court anyway, started in the Superior Court, which makes sense in most of the state. The problem is, it works. I'm sure it would work fine for Hillsborough or Stratford County. It doesn't work very well in rural counties, Cheshire or Coos County, because it's too long a drive for these small police departments to go all the way to the Superior Courthouse just for a PC hearing. But the problem is, the judge can just say, well, I don't believe in PC hearings, so you're not going to get one. And now the defense no longer has something to bring against the prosecutor to say, hey, you need to turn over the police reports now. You need to turn over the witness statements and photos and audio recording and what you have right now, or we're going to demand a PC hearing, and we're going to, at your expense, we're going to have a probable cause hearing to get that information out of them.
All right, we are ready to call Jorge. Max is staying with us because we want to keep talking about this, but we have a couple of guests we're going to squeeze in. Jorge Mesa Tejada is going to give us an education update. You have the number?
I have the number.
Outstanding. All right, we are going to take a really, really, really short break, long enough to make a phone call, and we'll be right back with our education update. You guys just stay tuned.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTV.